Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm discussing modal chords. This is the third episode in my series called Next Level Noodling. Joining me today in the studio is Alice. She doesn't say much, but she's growing on me. In my previous videos I explored the major scale and the modes of the major scale. This time around we are exploring the different chords available for each mode. Now there is a very wide variety of chords available, but we are going to be focusing on the more useful ones, like the triads. A chord is what you get when you play a bunch of notes at the same time. A modal chord is when you play a bunch of notes at the same time, where these notes are all on the major scale and you are referencing a particular mode. For example, if I am using the C major scale as a baseline, then I can play an Ionian triad by playing the first, third and fifth degrees of the mode. That is a C major chord. Switching to the Dorian mode, we can once again play the modal triad, in other words the first, the third and the fifth degrees of the mode, but this time we are starting on the second note of the baseline major scale. In this case a D minor chord. This is the third mode, E Phrygian, also a minor. The fourth mode, Lydian, that's an F major. The fifth or Mixolydian mode, a G major. The sixth or Aeolian mode, an A minor. And lastly, the seventh or Locrian mode, a B diminished chord. Now bear in mind I'm using all fourths tuning. If you go and look closely at the different patterns or chord shapes I've used, you'll see there are only three distinct fingering patterns to access all 7 modal triads. The Ionian, Lydian and Mixolydian modes, in other words the first, fourth and fifth modes, all have major triads. The Dorian, Phrygian and Aeolian modes, in other words the second, third and sixth modes, all have minor triads. The Locrian mode is the odd one out and it's got a diminished triad. So 3 shapes to access all the triads for all the modes of the major scale. In my previous videos I showed you that using all fourths tuning there's only one pattern on the fretboard you need to memorize to be able to play the entire major scale anywhere on the fretboard. Now the next piece of information that's important is that depending on which note of the scale you start, you are in effect playing one of the modes of the major scale. So if you know in which mode you are, in other words on which note of the major scale you are, you should be able to play a major, a minor or a diminished triad at any point on the fretboard. That is both the magic of the major scale and all fourths tuning. I started off this video looking at triads, in other words the first, the third and the fifth degrees of each mode. Now triads are used a lot, typically because they sound quite good. But you can add other notes to the chord. For example, you can create a 7th chord by using your triad and then adding a 7th degree of the scale to the chord. So you'll have 1, 3, 5 and 7. I suppose you could call this a quad. Or you can go the other way and just have 2 notes for the chord. This is called a dyad. You can play any two notes of the major scale at the same time to create a two-note chord. For example, I can play the first and second degrees, and it sounds like that. Move the second up an octave, so now it becomes a 9, so 2 plus 7 is 9. And it sounds like this, which is quite nice. First and third, major third, or a first and a 10th, so it's a 3 plus 7. One and four, one and five, also known as a power chord. Pretty, eh? One and six, one and seven, and lastly the octave 1 and 8. Anyway, there's a very deep rabbit hole we can get into playing with different chords, which is not the point of this video, so let's exit gracefully at this point. For general purposes, you should know that triads will get you a very long way, and other than that, you should be able to feel free to experiment with different combinations of notes that are on the scale. Okay, let's recap. Chords are what you get when you play more than one note at any given time. Modal chords are when you play a chord starting at a particular offset into the major scale pattern, for example starting on the second, the third, or some other degree of the major scale. Now starting at that offset, you can play the first, the third and the fifth degree of that mode to get a triad, which will be either a major, a minor or a diminished triad. Now for all 7 modes, in other words for all 7 notes on the major scale, there are only 3 distinct chord patterns that you need to memorize if you use all fourths tuning. This is very powerful because it allows you to play any of those triads at any point on the fretboard. Lastly, triads are only one type of chord. You should be able to feel free to play any combination of notes on the scale and experiment for yourself and see what sounds good to you. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like and subscribe. It'll help to build the channel. Now next time I hope to cover some ideas around building melodic lines while improvising, as well as covering some basic guitar techniques. Till next time, bye bye.